And then we figured out a lot of these things don't work. The market doesn't support a lot of these models. Ideas seemed interesting, but when it plays out, what works, what isn't working.
Exactly.
And then you had the dot-com crash. So because we needed to hire and because I'd been hiring online in the US, I started Rozee.pk for our own internal needs to hire. And it grew very, very quickly. And it very quickly became the largest jobs platform in the country. The State Bank had launched a branchless banking framework. And it was, that meant that you could open a bank account without going to a physical bank branch.
That has to be really a revolution.
It was a revolutionary step taken by State Bank. Revolutionary.
Even now, yeah.
So we said, okay, if you don't have to go to a branch, then we can do it through tech. Whatever happens to the macro economy, one thing's certain, it's coming online. And
this shift is happening.
This shift is happening. You're seeing
and also
it
the gray and the black economy will be whiter.
It will 100% be whiter, not because the black economy wants to make it white, because they will have to make it white. 27% of all the VC funding that came into the country went to these B2B platforms.
Right.
5, 6, 8, however many. Banks are having a field day because they have free capital. They're investing your money to the government at exorbitant rates, so banks are making crazy money. I'm gonna open sales offices in 9 cities because I went to India. I spent a week in India with the Naukri folks, amazing guys. Saw their playbook. I said, expand sales team. It worked in India. Every time they added a city, they just grew massively. So for me...
So you mean like even like in a Pakistani market, you could make better than what people are making in the US or whatever?
Not to brag,
which is interesting.
Not to brag, Sarah. But this is what feedback we have gotten. But
sometimes
you can't do that.
The AI has a very short memory.
It does have a short memory. So the latest stuff that we're playing with now, and this is the latest everywhere, everybody's playing with it. The world has come to a conclusion that AI bots must have really good memory to feedback in conversations. We have about 60 million working people in Pakistan. 20 million are white collar, 40 million are blue collar workers. I could only serve 20 million of them, and I serve 20 million to an extent.
Hello, Sarah, with you today. I'm a Moroccan entrepreneur, newly settled in Pakistan, and in this episodes of Fossil Podcast, we are exploring the Pakistani ecosystem, and I have Monis with me, Monis in Arabic, with me today. He's becoming a friend now, and I'm happy to have you in this podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Sarah. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for being here. And I think I'm going to share a lot of input and lessons here. You are one of the first Pakistani that came 20 years ago, a little bit more, to do tech in Pakistan. Right in front of when the bubble happens in US and everything, so the technology start maybe migrating to other parts of the world. Tell me a little bit about, maybe do a little introduction and then tell me a little bit about what this period was about.
Yeah, sure. It's a little bit like landing on the moon, right? When you come with a flag and there's nobody else there. I started my career actually in the US. So I did my high school in Pakistan. I went to the American school in Karachi. After graduating, I did a degree in electrical and computer engineering in Madison, Wisconsin. I got a job at Intel, my dream job. There's a whole story of how I managed to get that job. Intel was at the forefront in those days in my field of computer engineering. They're making all the microprocessors, memory chips. So I found a way to get in. I was hired as the first person in their call center, the Intel call center. I was intern number 1. So I interned there for a few terms. Yeah, it was great. And then following that, they invited me back a number of times, and I ended up joining the microprocessor team. It's a very small group, about 800 people at that time at Intel, who actually made the designs and architectures of the chip. Most of the companies, the manufacturing, marketing, quality assurance, all of the other distribution. So I was very privileged to work with, I think, some of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. And I got 9 patents, mainly for computer architecture things. And while I was there,
hardware.
Hardware and algorithms to make the chips work faster. Branch prediction is actually my area, so
okay.
Had a lot of expertise in the old days in that area. And then eventually, what I saw happening was I had some very smart people, but they were working at Intel for their entire life, and I thought they could produce a lot more value than just being an employee at Intel, even though they were doing great things. And so I felt restless. And around this time, the dot-com wave started, the first one, when Hotmail was created and Yahoo and Google. And it was a very small area. And the Valley area, San Francisco.
This, you've witnessed this, like,
I saw it happen.
Born.
Over $1 billion was being invested every month. It's a very small area. So people were coming in, leaving their jobs, moving from New York. The consultants were quitting, experienced people who were being paid well because VC funding came in. And we started dogfood.com to whatever.com. And it was a very euphoric time. And then we figured out a lot of these things don't work. The market doesn't support a lot of these models. Ideas seemed interesting, but when it plays out, what works, what isn't working.
Exactly.
And then you had the dot-com crash. So I experienced the rise. I experienced that crash. I had very good friends who founded very cool organizations, which are, huge. So I learned a lot from very smart people. I moved back to Pakistan in 2003. And, mainly because the cost
the Revenant, call it.
The Revenant. The Revenant. And it was a great time because, we have very good engineering labor talent here. And in my days in the Valley, I figured out that one of my major obstacles was the cost of my developers, because then you have to raise more funding and that whole VC cycle that we've been through, the hemorrhaging.
And the salaries are the biggest expense in a startup.
Especially when you're trying to figure things out. When you don't have revenue, you're trying to experiment, product market fit. So in that backdrop, I moved back to Pakistan and my parents were here, another very strong reason for me to be back. And I started Nassim.com here, which was a social networking site, which got very, very large in the West.
Really?
Yeah, it became a cash cow, very interesting. It was a Muslim social networking platform.
And you told me earlier, like last day, that at that time when you arrived to Pakistan, how many people were using internet?
About 1.8 million people.
1.8 million. This is like ridiculous for Pakistan.
And they were using it from the office. So, so if you look at the internet traffic, you would see that on the weekends, traffic went almost down to zero on the internet.
Because they are not in the office.
They're not plugged into the umbilical cord at the office.
Of course.
So, very, very interesting time.
So you worked with Nassim with the office people then?
Well, Nassim was targeting the diaspora. It wasn't targeting Pakistani market.
Okay.
You have to remember in 2003, the Pakistani internet user was very inexperienced, so they were still learning how to use the internet at that time. And there wasn't really a way to monetize them in Pakistan. And the market was too small. And the nature of social networking sites, you have to create a balance in the community, and you can't have just a bunch of young men who aren't trained on the internet, So there was a diaspora component which was very large. So most of the members on Nassim were in North America, UK, Australia, and Canada, and then spread around the world. Great experience. It became a cash cow. Learned a lot, but one of the things that happened was we needed to hire. I just moved back to Pakistan, like you, trying to orient myself where I go. First thing I did was I bought a map after I moved back to Pakistan, like an actual paper map. So I would have a map in my car
that's normal.
Open it up to figure out where I was. So because we needed to hire and because I'd been hiring online in the US, I started Rozee.pk for our own internal needs to hire, and it grew very, very quickly. And it very quickly became the largest jobs platform in the country. A whole lot of learning from that experience. And, one problem came after the other. Then we had a payments problem. Okay, now we've launched this large jobs platform. We've got lots of corporate organizations. We have about 65,000 employers who use our jobs platform. We'll speak about that later.
Crazy.
About 10 million professionals who's uploaded their CVs, lots of interaction from them applying for jobs.
Not only in Pakistan, right?
And not only in Pakistan, employers we have globally, anybody who wants to hire from this market. So we have an international client base as well that hires from Pakistan. We have job seekers internationally who want to move back to Pakistan. But one of the main problems at that point became the payments problem, right? So when you're in, like you land on the moon, there's no road. You have to build a little road. And then, so incrementally we had to build a bit of infrastructure to sort of solve our own problems.
That's always the problem. I mean, like, not the problem, but the challenge of emerging markets. There is a huge opportunity, definitely, but as you said, you need to make the roads.
And it takes a long time for the opportunity to cook. So even after you build a road, it takes 5 to 10 years for that to actually get traction. So you have to have
cash cow next to the business,
you have to be so patient in Pakistan. Things don't happen as quickly as you would want, especially over the last 15, 20 years. Now things are changing. It's really accelerated. But payments was a problem because our sales team used to go to our clients to get small amounts of money. At that time, it was very small. I think we started our paid jobs for 800 rupees a job, right? So you have somebody driving a motorcycle and grabbing 800.
Grabbing the 800, like the rent.
Yes, exactly. But
rent collection.
Rent collection. And they would come back and then you had to reconcile cash, and then you're always suspicious that the cash vanished someplace.
That's very funny. Yeah. That was in which year?
Oh, this was around 2006, 2007.
Okay.
So yeah, it's changed quite a bit. And then, so the payment problem was big. So was on the board of a bank and brainstormed with the CEO of the bank at that time, Mudassir Akil, great guy. He went on to lead Easy Pesa. And the state bank had launched a branchless banking framework. And it was, that meant that you could open a bank account without going to a physical bank branch.
That has to be really a revolution.
It was a revolutionary step taken by State Bank. Revolutionary.
Even now, yeah.
So we said, okay, if you don't have to go to a branch, then we can do it through tech. And so we built the first telco-agnostic mobile wallet in the country, the SimSim wallet with Finja Bank. Did a lot of innovation, was trying to solve the payment problem. A few of my friends, early days, the PayPal founders, I saw that journey very close up. And, it was like, it's going to eventually happen in Pakistan. There's going to be a payment revolution. So very exciting. We were the first ones to ever do a QR code transaction at retail. First wallet that you could open just through your ID card. And the KYC process you see in opening up a wallet, we worked very closely with State Bank to get that approved. Early days, it was the first time it ever happened, agnostic of a telco wallet. So I didn't have the account information that like a telco has. Mm-hmm. That process is largely intact. That's largely what you're seeing now on all the wallets. So experienced a lot in that journey.
And talking about FinTech, I will just stop for a while. So how do you see the evolution of this ecosystem since? Because you are one of the first that has maybe paved the road for FinTech in Pakistan, especially in this market.
Yes.
Because it's a very complicated market. I know with all the terrorism happening, and so there's also the regulators and the banks are a little bit making sometimes for us stupid stupid policies.
Yeah.
How do you see fintechs now in Pakistan ecosystem navigating?
Yeah, look, I mean, like I said, I saw it from day zero, and having to build these things without regulations, operating in gray areas, working with the regulator, convincing the regulator,
building together.
And then finding out limitations that, if I could do this, it would be much better, but I can't. I have to do these other 3 things. It was very exciting to be able to do this, but it was slow. And if you look at where we are today as an ecosystem for FinTech, it's a Disneyland for entrepreneurs. You have all the rails there now. It wasn't there before. Today in Pakistan, you have, 150 million people that have a mobile phone. About 70% of them have internet access. And about half of those, about 35% of adults, now have wallets or ways to pay on that phone. That's fantastic.
The Easy Pesa,
Jazz Cash, Sada Pay, Habib Bank, you name it, they've got accounts, Mizan. And so Pakistanis are now very conversant in sending cash through their phones, and you'll see it. And it's amazing. You order some food and the food panda guy comes, you don't have cash, you tell the rider, hey, can I transfer? He said, yeah, I have my Easy Pesa. You transfer it to his personal account. The same thing for any place you go. Even if you get a flat tire, you can now pay the guy through a wallet, bank account. So these are monumental shifts. So now you have a population that's conversant on smartphones, that's very savvy. They've used Instagram, they've used TikTok, they've used, all of these tools.
Yeah.
They've ordered on Foodpanda. So people are increasingly trained on it now, and they have internet access. And now we have AI. I'd love to speak about AI at some point, but that changes the game completely, because previously we were only able to access this sort of educated class that was sort of able to use and navigate English interfaces and press buttons and go through menus. It takes a certain IQ and level of education. Maturity to do that. And if you cannot read or write, or barely read or write, it basically means you're being excluded from this new economy that's blooming.
Exactly.
And now with AI, and I'll speak about that in a lot more detail, we can build AI-based conversational Urdu voice note-based interfaces. So now, all of a sudden, instead of accessing 2/3 of the workforce on Rozee, 1/3 of the workforce is white collar, I can access the other 2/3. Massive number. So the amount of interactivity and things you can do to make people's lives easier today, the potential is unprecedented.
Changed tremendously.
You were talking about regulations. As much as I think we beat up the regulators, I just want to say that the regulators in Pakistan have done an outstanding job.
I've seen, and for me, it's like they are really quite visionary.
They are ahead of their time. They have been very responsive. They've moved faster than industry in some cases. State Bank, with the EMI license that was launched, we were the first ones to get the pilot for the EMI. We worked with State Bank on the regulations. EMI 2.0 came in. We, had the opportunity to give some feedback that were, implemented. And then the subsequent regulations for digital bank regulations.
Right.
Rast, that is now roaring. It is a game changer for the country. Yeah. It's like UPI in India and PIX. It's really a hockey stick inflection point for the payments industry once Rast starts spreading around. It's happening. We're doing it with Dukan. And on the SECP side, our regulator was very quick to respond to sort of data-based loans that are being handed out. A lot of players came in opportunistically, exploited the market. It happens everywhere. It happened in Nigeria, happened in India. Very sort of abusive startups that come in and just give a lot of very expensive loans and harass people. State Bank reacted to that very quickly. And within a matter of 1 or 2 years, it's built a very solid framework to make sure that never happens again. And yet they've given so many other sandboxes for us to play with, like P2P crowdfunding, and a lot of stuff is happening. So very grateful and maybe a bit surprised that the regulators have been so innovative and responsive relative to the rest of the government services.
In the words, yeah.
That we've gotten used to.
And you told me about a little bit the story of SimSim. I really would love, because maybe to share it very briefly to see what was the... how you get out of it.
So look, you have infinite possibilities. And when the branchless banking framework launched and Finca Microfinance Bank, where it served on the board, got excited and said, let's jump in, we created a FinTech called Finja. And we partnered with them to become their super agent, because there wasn't a license at that time. You couldn't do it through an EMI. And we created the first telco agnostic wallet with the bank. And it was amazing. And then we had to spend money on market acquisition, right? So we'd raised a very small amount of money at that time, and the bank
locally?
No, actually, we had raised money internationally.
Okay.
So we had some funds that had invested in us at that time, and but not much. I think at that time we raised like $1 million or so, but we needed to market it.
For that time, I think it was big.
Yeah, but when you launch a wallet, as we learned very naively, you need a lot of money.
A lot of money.
You don't need $1 million. You don't need $5 million. You need like $50 million, $100 million.
For the acquisition?
Yes, because it's a total behavior change. I'm getting you to install an app. I'm getting you to put in your ID card for the first time, create a wallet, figure out how the wallet works, how the fund works. Why do I need this? I haven't used it before. So a tremendous amount of marketing spend was needed. So
like a real social change, radical social change.
It's a radical behavioral change, which you have to just plow down. And as we learned later, the telcos were very good at doing this because they offered you airtime if you used the wallet or you had a balance, you did a transaction. So you kept feeding them this heroin of airtime, and they're already your customers on the telco. You had a big established base. So they very quickly acquired users.
Exactly. Here they were so good.
Yeah, so they grew, but those users were largely inactive because they were induced. So there's a big change that happened in like a telco industry when they finally realized we can't keep throwing cash at this because we're hemorrhaging. And their stakeholders also got impatient. But I think they evolved very nicely on the back of lending. So lending is actually what has saved, the telco-led wallets, because it became very profitable very soon. The same problem I talked about when the early entrants came and gave abusive loans. These guys managed to understand the system. They're local. They got it right, and they're scaling quite fast. So back to the Finja experience, we did a lot of crazy things. So we launched this wallet. We said, okay, let's put up QR codes because they should work. So we went and we put up our own QR codes.
I think you were one of the first.
Yeah. So we were crazy. We just put up QR codes. You'd go to a restaurant, you'd find like a SimSim QR code. You're like, what is this? And so you have a wallet, you can pay. How do I put money in the wallet? You have to transfer it in. It's a complicated behavior change. And we also gave the first loan on the smartphone. We would credit score instantly. We, used some Rozee data to take our professionals and just threw loans at them and see, how well they performed. A lot of interesting innovations in areas we didn't have a lot of experience with at the time. Now we've gotten very good at it.
A lot of test and learn.
A lot of test and learn and burn. We launched the first payroll processing platform, which was called Payroll Plus, where we'd let organization process salaries for their employees. We'd give their employees a SimSim wallet, and then we'd let their employees take loans against those wallets. So this was way before EWA became a thing.
SimSim, it's like the sesame in Arabic.
Open sesame, SimSim. Yeah, that's where the name came from.
Okay. That's very fun.
Yeah.
And how was the exit? I'm so intrigued about the exit that you...
Yeah. So SimSim was a wallet. It was a brand that was that we built with Finca Microfinance Bank. So SimSim isn't the name of the company. The name of the company is Finja. Finja did a lot of experiments. Finja became the first EMI to also get an NBFC license because you can't give loans through the EMI license. You can't give loans from your balance sheet. So we got another license. We created another company that was an NBFC. And lots of things that's happened. It's a long story. But on the payment side, our payments acquisition slowed down because at that time, Finca Microfinance Bank, which was a conventional microfinance bank, launched the first telco-agnostic mobile wallet. So imagine what a radical change it is for a brick-and-mortar bank. So we'd worked very closely with them. We digitized the lending. First time, loan agents went with a tablet that did automatic KYC, the biometric, first time. So we did a digitization of the loan process. We built this API gateway for
like
credit check.
Futuristic kind of thing.
We're building all this really cool tech, but Finca Bank, it's an international company, and basically they said, "Where's the money? We aren't making any money. It's been a year, and this was your projection plan." So navigating a very large organization, so basically it was killed because they said we can't invest any more money in the marketing, and so now you have a wallet that nobody's coming to, and now we're stuck with a partner.
How many users you were having at that time?
Oh, I think SimSim, I know that we were processing salaries for about 3,000 people. I think probably 40, 50,000 or so. I don't know the exact number.
Okay.
And
mainly in big cities, I guess.
It was mainly in big cities. We'd, done a splash, some online advertising. We were still acquiring, but you need to spend money to acquire. And so
a lot of money.
So there became a friction point with the bank where we were basically like a tech provider partner, but according to the banking licenses, the customer, it's a bank, so it's not our customer. We were a super agent. So we realized that this is going to be hard to grow under this sort of structure because there wasn't a commitment to come in because a global sort of stakeholder was, well, what is this crazy online thing? It doesn't make any money. We're losing money. Finca in Pakistan at that time was a contributor of 80% of the profits to the global. So Finca Pakistan was the ATM machine for the global Finca network, which wasn't doing as well. So they really needed the money that came out of this country to pay for their overhead. So there was impatience. Yeah. So it was my first sort of lesson in when you partner with giants as an entrepreneur.
Right.
what sort of unexpected headwinds you face and how to navigate them. So it's clear you always have to have options when you have one really large partner, because there are employees who work there, they change, people come and go, the corporate objectives. And it seems like corporate IQ is inversely proportional to the IQ of individuals in the company. I don't know why that works. So then we applied for the EMI license, which first came out. We got the first pilot approval for that. We launched, and what eventually ended up happening was Finja raised a few more rounds of investment. COVID hit, and we suspended our employee payroll processing sort of portfolio, which was my baby, because I had actually built that with my hand. I wasn't operationally full-time at Finja. I was doing Rozee and then, with Dukan. So I would sort of go in and try to help build things and make things there. And the payroll tool was my baby. I had wanted Finja to make it. And for many years, it wasn't being made. False starts, people came, tried something, failed. Finally, I said, everybody in my office, I got a little team of Finja, SWAT team, and we built the payroll processing tool. And it started doing really well. So we started to give very good loans on that because they were coming from the SimSim wallet. COVID hit, and all of a sudden we said we have to halt the brakes because companies are laying off. How will these employees be able to repay? So let's break the salary portion, the payroll piece of it, until things calm down, because we could lose all our money. We're a small company. And then Finja started experimenting with supply chain loans. So Finja has really innovated the concept of a supply chain loan, getting supply chain data from distributors, suppliers, trying to make sense of it, doing a KYC on the retailer, and then handing those loans. Very, very interesting experiment and learning. Long story short is that we raised funding. The funding cycle was hot. We were expecting to raise more funding. There wasn't a lot of pressure because you remember how much money was flying in. And Finja was making great progress on all the milestones, even though it was slow. It wasn't profitable. And then all of a sudden, there was almost a cliff function. We were expecting investment from another investor that had sort of made a commitment, and we were waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And basically, global events happened. And as a result, we found out very late that they weren't able to invest, and we were sort of expecting it. Maybe another naivety that, despite getting a sort of verbal nod, as an entrepreneur, you can't rely on it because that's your lifeblood. And then coincidentally, along with that, the whole VC market collapsed, and the appetite for investment in Pakistan went
down. And even in the world, actually.
In the world. So now the company became financially stressed. A lot of things happened. There was a play inside the management team. Some sort of, differences arose inside the management team. Investors, I think, became nervous. And it was not a very pleasant situation. I think I've seen the worst of human nature during this time. It was clear that we needed to get some sort of an exit to stay viable. And I think around that time, OPay became interested in the license, and eventually a deal was signed with OPay to sell the EMI to OPay. So the Finja EMI has now been sold to OPay. So OPay has acquired Finja EMI.
And they're still operating it, I guess.
And they're operating it, I suppose. I'm not sure, I have not been involved for about 2 years now. But they are operating a wallet. I know they're operating a wallet, so.
Okay, what's actually a roller coaster, and as you said, paving the road, creating things. What are now, you think, the still maybe untapped potential in the FinTech, in the Pakistani ecosystem?
So, a lot of the things we did, Sarah, were too early. Like with Rozee, I was too early with Rozee. Too early. But I'm not too early now. And I think Finja, many things were too early. Also learned a lot of lessons, how to build teams that I'm not directly operationally involved with, and co-founders and managing stakeholders. It doesn't work. It doesn't work if I'm not directly operationally involved. This is one of my learnings. So
here in Pakistan, you mean? Or
for me, it doesn't
generally
work. Or I still haven't learned how to build companies without being operationally involved to sort of handhold the detailed nuances.
Got it.
And I think that's very tough to do in startup environments. So, look, all of this experience has been a tremendous learning. Going to Kriana stores and talking to them, finding out who's repaying, what kind of fraud is happening, what kind of rails, payment integration. There's such a wealth of knowledge that I've acquired in this whole process and learnings. And now the ecosystem is hot. So my excitement has just skyrocketed. And this is the time, I've spent so much time here. The things are happening much faster. All the Lego blocks are in place. You can build, you can launch. And this economy is coming online. It's a $80 billion economy. Whatever happens to the macro economy, one thing's certain, it's coming online. And
this shift is happening.
You're seeing
and also the gray and the black economy will be whiter.
It will 100% be whiter, not because the black economy wants to make it white, because they will have to make it white. The noose is tightening, the convenience it offers, the benefits like lending. If you do transactions, I can credit score you, give you loans. That's what we're doing. So the economy is whitening inevitably. Payments, if you look at what happened to India, and Brazil and many other nations, Vietnam, whenever they launched unified QR code switch from the regulator,
right,
skyrocket. So it's about to happen. We're right on the threshold of a payment sort of revolution happening in a big way at retail.
So what startup what ideas people, maybe founders who are watching us or new entrepreneurs should maybe work on or think about?
So look, everything is coming online. When I launched Rozee, people said, you're crazy. It doesn't happen in Pakistan. Jobs you put in newspapers. Who's going to go to the internet, right? But it was inevitable. It had to happen. And I'd seen it happen elsewhere. So B2B platforms in Pakistan and globally have raised a lot of money. In fact, something like about 27% of all the VC funding that came into the country went to these B2B platforms.
Right.
5, 6, 8, however many. It happened globally. The B2B platforms are basically, they buy the inventory, so they have to have the capital to buy inventory. It's a lot of capital. They warehouse those inventories, so they have to pay for warehousing. They do delivery, so they have to have a rider fleet and manage the logistics. They have an app through which ordering happens, so they have to go and get people to install the app, merchant acquisition. And then they have to do a behavior change, getting those merchants to use their app to order. So a lot of things you have to boil at the same time, but incredibly capital intensive. You need a lot of cash to do this. Margins are low. Usually doesn't work.
So in emerging markets, it's very hard, I think.
And I think it's failed almost everywhere with a few exceptions, including Ismail's doing a great job over there. But the other problem is that fundamentally in the business model, you are buying stock from a distributor who used to sell that stock directly to the retailers, and now you're selling it to his customers. So the next time his order booker goes to a merchant and says, buy my stock, he said, sorry, I bought from there. And they bought it at a discount because they have money and they were eager to acquire. So the margin of the transaction has dropped. His margins dropped because he sold wholesale. So the fundamental business modeling issue there as well. So I think it's clear that model, standalone, does not work. The only way it works is if you combined FinTech into it.
Right.
This was my thesis from day one when we launched.
Giving loans to businesses.
Giving loans, helping them with their financial sort of transactions. That's where the money actually lies. Margins are too small, and it's also... It's
like offering that infrastructure that will help them run the business also, right?
This is exactly right. And this was my thesis at the beginning. I don't want to compete with the distributors for that merchant. I don't want to be the bad guy saying, oh, you just took food out of my mouth and now you're reselling and I've dropped my average sales price. And that fight, plus the intense capital requirements.
And it's not your job in any way.
It's not my job, and I'm learning too many new things. I'm trying to master an industry that has been around. It's a very gray area. There's a lot of weird stuff that happens in like a supply chain. It's not transparent.
They're like mafia kind of
They're mafia, lots of corruptions. You dump stock in somebody else's area. And it's a whole mess. So my thesis was that we have to build a very light platform and we have to enable the ecosystem. I've been here forever. I'm in love with Pakistan. I'm in love with the ecosystem. I'm in love with trying to make it grow and add value. This has been my passion for God knows how many years. I think maybe passion to a fault.
Being the warrior.
Yeah, but eventually you have to make money too, of course.
Of course.
But so I wanted to build software and fintech services that connect the incumbent players, the existing ecosystem, with each other.
Right.
I want to plug in. I didn't want to replace one of these components and say, now I'm the distributor. I'm the big distributor. These guys are no longer important because they don't have tech and I have tech, so I'm cooler. So strategy was, okay, we don't need warehousing. We don't need to have a delivery fleet. And how can I get rid of the problem of having to install my app on every single merchant? That takes a big ground force. And how can I enable loans on that platform through data? So there's a lot of tech. So Dukan built that tech. So it's a digital banking platform for undocumented retail merchants. It's a license light. It is no inventory. We don't do any of that. We plug into distributors. We give them the software to manage the distribution. We got a DMS. If they want it, if they don't want it, we integrate with it. We build these super apps for retail merchants.
Right.
And we white label those apps to other existing players. We have integrated with EasyPesa, the Karobar platform, and a number of others globally as well. We're going into Africa. We've got a few things happening. So it's an enabling platform.
Yeah. It's very funny that even the biggest company now becomes fintech in a way or another. Like Facebook, it's a fintech, even if it's like a social media platform. They're like running a lot of money in with all the ads and everything. There is like Starbucks also. They saved themselves from bankruptcy by becoming a fintech and empowering the business owners. And so I think like it's all around this. Finally,
100%. I mean, and even in fintech, when you go down to fintech, where's the money? It's really in the lending. And we also have to help people save money. We don't do anything to help people save money. If you look at the number of savers in this country, it's minusculely small. How many people have actually traded on the stock exchange?
And the next step in investment.
Investment.
Investment, I think it's
because we don't save money.
Yeah.
I think there are about 50,000 active consumers or individuals who trade on PSX. Very small number. Right? I mean, they'll claim a larger number like 200,000-300,000, but the active ones, a country of 250 million people, you have 50,000 individuals who trade on the stock market.
Especially with a huge devaluation. So, I mean, you cannot put your money in the bank. It's meaningless. So
you are depreciating like crazy. And all of your employees, all of my employees, they put their money in a current account, which is non-interest bearing. So you have inflation of 25% a year. All of your money is in like a current account. Banks are having a field day because they have free capital. They're investing your money to the government at exorbitant rates. So banks are making crazy money. They're very profitable and they're very inefficient. So you have the most inefficient large organizations, not all of them, there's some great banks too, that are making crazy money just because they have access to your capital, a license, and insatiable appetite from the government to borrow. So they don't have to do a good job serving you.
Right. They don't care almost about you.
Because they're making money. So there's a lot of disruption here on the saving side, on the lending side, on basically financial services, which will really uplift the masses. And we saw this happen in China. They uplifted 1 billion people off of poverty, out of poverty, on the basis of these smartphones and the payments and lending.
I would love to. Actually, we can speak like for hours and hours, but I would love actually to share something with our audience that I think also very important about your Saudi Arabian experience. Because with Rozee, you told me like you've expanded, you acquired Mihnati, which is a startup there. How a Pakistani startup got to that market? What was the triggers?
This is all a roller coaster ride, right? So you're an entrepreneur. You're like, okay, I've got Rozee. I've raised funding. I'm going to open sales offices in 9 cities because I went to India. I spent a week in India with the Naukri folks, amazing guys. Saw their playbook. I said, expand sales team. It worked in India. Every time they added a city, they just grew massively. We had raised funding, did TV ads, spent a lot of money, built sales team.
All right.
And a year later, we're like, okay, what happened? And we barely increased our revenue. I think we increased our revenue by like something like 10%, but we increased the burn rate by like 4x.
Oh, yeah. That's a lot.
Yeah, so it's not a good situation. So it didn't work. And just beat our head, tried to do everything. I mean, really, really aggressive experiments. And basic realization was, well,
I guess to acquire more businesses and also more candidates.
Job seekers. And when you
Job
acquire
seekers.
businesses and you get jobs, job seekers also come. But the interesting learning was in India, every single city, even their small cities, probably have a GDP equivalent to our sort of super large cities. But in Pakistan, you have KLI, and then the GDP of the cities drop dramatically. So the real juice in Pakistan is really in
KLI.
a few of these cities. Now it's expanding because more and more people have online access. So I'm sure it's going to grow in terms of our online income. It has grown. But like if you go to Indonesia, you'll find it's one city in Jakarta. That's where all the action is. Bangladesh,
where
in
everything
Dhaka.
is happening.
So again, learned a lot from that. And so at one point I said, okay, we've raised funding, but my revenue isn't growing at the rate I need to justify my valuation. I can't raise another round until I get to a certain sort of level. And I really beat the drum hard. And then we spent all the VC money, we ran out of money. So now we had to be organically profitable again. We were before. A lot of trauma in doing that. Worked out really well. But now we needed growth. So where do you grow? Well, very clear that the amount I can charge in Pakistan is much less than the amount I can charge internationally. So studied the global markets, nearby markets, Saudi market at that time. For me, I did a spreadsheet.
Which year was that?
Oh my God, that was, I think, 2008 or 9.
Oh, I thought it's like recent.
No,
Because
very old.
It's for me. It's recent that like people started looking at Saudi Arabian market.
No.
So
We
So nothing was happening in Saudi Arabia at that time. I
Well,
guess.
nothing was happening compared to now, but Saudi Arabia was always the largest online market in the entire area. So if you looked at the revenue of Souk at that time, or you looked at Kareem.
I've been to Saudi Arabia last time, and it told me like, okay, we are like 40 million, but we are consuming of like a country of 100 million or something.
Any online business in those days, about 60% of their revenue was coming from Saudi. So Saudi was the market.
It's crazy.
Back then.
Back then, right.
Now it's even more exciting. So Saudi's a giant there. So got a lot of data, built a big spreadsheet, pressed a button, and Saudi came out at the top. I'd grown up in Saudi, so I have a lot of affinity towards Saudi as well. So I said, okay, I need to end up in Riyadh. So I flew to Riyadh, attended a few events.
Understand the market.
Understood the market, met some people. There was a Nesma group, was a very large group. Met with them. They had a jobs platform, which was losing money year on year. And they said, we want to get out of this thing. So I knew that I could make it profitable because their expenses were very high in Saudi. So we actually acquired them. And we rebuilt their platform and restaffed it and rehired. And now we were going after this new market in Saudi. Okay. And it turned out Saudi is a very tough market to crack in terms of sales. So a lot of experience in Saudi trying to get sales and customers.
So I want to ask, what is the business culture there in Saudi Arabia? Because I think it's so different from Pakistan or from other markets also.
Saudi business culture has changed over time dramatically. As you've seen when you go to Saudi, if you go to Riyadh now or Saudi now, it's not the same country that was 3-4 years ago. So business culture has changed.
First time I've been at Leap in February, but I haven't.
Oh, it's a very
before.
different Saudi you're seeing now. So sales cycles were very long. You needed to speak Arabic. Very hard to do a sale in English. The credibility, impossible. And it was very much relationship based. So you needed to build those relationships over time. Customer expectations in Saudi were much higher than expectations in Pakistan because they had seen the best of the best. There's the McKinseys in there and, Deloitte and all these international companies who've raised the bar. But there was a lot of money. But it just takes time to penetrate Saudi. You really need to get your sales machine going and having the right people there. So
Arabic speaker, I guess.
Arabic speakers are very important. It's not just Arabic speakers. What kind of accent do you have? Is it an Egyptian accent? Or is it a Lebanese accent? Or is it a Jordanian speaker?
Exactly, it's different.
Because at that time, Saudis were very judgmental in terms of who's doing the sale to them. If it's like a Yemeni accent, Egyptian accent, they have a different impression of your brand.
Of course.
So there's a lot of optic stuff that navigated.
There is a hierarchy of the Arab countries.
There's a hierarchy, and it affects how much money I'm going to pay for your product.
Exactly.
If I'm John Smith from England and I sell to you, I can probably make more money.
It's quite hard for Pakistani to understand this Arab countries hierarchy in the point of view of a Saudi Arabian.
Yeah. So sort of understood
business.
that very quickly. But I remember Naukri.com was also in Saudi, and they never really grew that big. And it was because they used to have Indian salespeople there. And they said, no, we're going to use our own guys because it's very hard to get output from our employees in Saudi. That's very true. So getting productivity from a labor market at that time, having employees there, Saudi employees, the work culture was very bad. So you couldn't get much out, and the labor laws were incredibly painful for an entrepreneur.
Right.
So, a lot of these learnings. And then COVID hit. So when COVID hit, Saudi was probably one of the worst affected places on the globe because the lockdown was much longer than other countries.
Oh,
so all of the business stopped. And if you recall, by this time, we had run out of VC funding and we were working organically. So
bootstrapping.
We were trying to get profitable. So I had to cut my expenses in Saudi, and we put that in hibernation, and then we invested in Pakistan. We got Pakistan profitable again. And we've done a lot of amazing things in Pakistan. We've relaunched Rozee as an AI-first platform. I think it's probably the first recruiting platform that's transitioned to AI first. I was just speaking at a conference in Vienna of all of the recruiting platform providers, and I'm going again to speak in Copenhagen. So what we've done here, and I'm comparing ourselves to the other job sites and recruitment platforms, I think we're miles ahead in terms of AI.
You create an AI agent, you told me, that is doing wonders.
Yeah, so we've launched it in phases. We launched our employer AI-based employment process where it does job descriptions, automatic matching, assessments, video interviews, and just incredible.
How accurate
things.
Is it?
It's incredibly accurate.
Right.
Which is
better than a human being, maybe.
It's much better than a human being because we have our HR individuals too who also screen CVs. So if I look at the output of the machine versus the individuals, the machine is much better and it's instant. It'll do it within a minute versus an individual who might take 3 days.
At the same time.
Yeah. So one of the great wonders is that we had tried to build this matching technology. That's what we do in a job board. And there are various, if the job is a PHP developer or software programmer and they have Ajax experience. So you have to do all these inferences based on data. And now with AI, because of a semantic nature of AI and the contextual understanding of AI, my matching algorithm, which would be about 60%, has jumped to like 95, 98%, which is phenomenal.
Crazy.
So the value I can give to an employer and job seeker has just skyrocketed. And this is a gift from God as far as I'm concerned, because it was not that difficult to do. I'd invested a year in building 6 people data science team and machine learning algorithms, and and I got to like 60-some%, right? Okay, now while we do this, there's so many new AI tools coming out every day, AI models, platforms, frameworks, languages, techniques.
Sometimes you can be a little bit lost.
It is impossible to keep up. So it's very stressful watching, learning, coding. I've been doing a lot of, in the evening, that's all I do. I sit home and I just code and I, sort of play with new platforms.
Till now?
New techniques. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
your game time.
It's time to play. And actually, it's the output of those late nights that created Rozee.pk, which now we have called Recruit AI. It's a Singaporean company. So we've taken that intellectual property of that AI out, and that's Recruit AI, which now has an arm's length relationship with Rozee, which has white labeled it. We're going to do the same thing.
You can sell it to any
and we're going international with this because we know we're so far ahead. But one of the great discoveries.
So far ahead globally or in the region?
Globally?
Oh, that's very interesting.
It's a global market, right? Because AI can speak any language. It can speak French, it can speak Arabic. I just have to switch a prompt. So for me...
So you mean even in a Pakistani market, you could make better than what people are making in the US or whatever?
That's to brag,
which is interesting.
Not to brag, Sarah, but this is what feedback we have gotten at the conference.
Amazing.
I went to in Vienna with the largest group. Well, I think it just shows the great equalizer. Whoever hustles the most, it doesn't matter where in the world they're sitting.
Of course.
But if you have the aptitude and the hustle to build something quickly, it's really a level playing field. And you can do it at the fraction of the cost, right? If I look how much I spent building that platform in-house versus how much my European friends have already spent doing 1/10 of that, millions of dollars, there's a great arbitrage if you have the talent and the ability.
Of course. And the experience.
And the experience and the war wounds. Right? You have to have some war wounds to do this. But the more you do it, because you're the first one doing it, you're uncovering incremental opportunities. Like, oh my God, I could do this. Oh my God, I could do that. Like we spoke to a client and they posted a job. They said it'd be really nice if we could have KPIs for this role after they hired. That's easy. Next day, we launched a button with KPIs for the role. Phenomenal. So incremental value is easy to create once you're in the game. We were lucky that we already had Rozee, so we could test it on massive amounts of data, massive amounts of real employers, job seekers, improve our algorithms, improve our interfaces, find out where people were getting stuck. But the really big breakthrough, of course, it's a matching algorithm, which I think is really sort of holy grail. But we've also been investing in agentic AI bots. So now Rozee has about 3,000 conversations a day with our job seekers on WhatsApp through our agentic AI bots named Aisha, Ahmed, Hina, who are AI-based recruitment consultants who talk to our professionals that match our jobs and tell them they should apply and why they apply and why they're good for the position. And they can talk and ask information. How much is a salary? Where is this? What is that? And the bot responds.
Because I feel Pakistani, they love asking questions.
They love talking.
They love asking obvious questions.
Yeah.
Even if it's there, and they still will ask.
Our AI never loses its patience. It's never unpleasant. It's always happy. You can ask the same question 100 times and it will have a smile on its face. It makes you feel good.
That's the best part.
So our conversion for job matching alerts that we used to send on email
got higher,
was about 0.5%. And with our agentic bots, it is now 22.5%. And the 22.5% that match are all great matches because our AI has told us who the best matches are, as opposed to an email blast where you're mailing a lot of people. As we're doing this, we figured out how to get agentic conversations going. And this is a big technological breakthrough. You know, there's this concept in AI called RAG. How do you take 10 million people and shove them into an LLM? You can't. So there's RAG is a technique on how you take a large amount of data. You can distill that data, throw it into the LLM of the most interesting people. You've got a prompt length, a context length. So this is a whole sort of a science everybody is studying. Lots of people are building lots of things. We were very early on, so we've cracked that problem. It's a major problem that people are still struggling with on how to do it right. And then the other problem that we had is once we start these conversations, you want to humanize it as much as possible. If I've talked to you 2 months ago and I tell you it's my birthday on May 7th, the bot should remember. But
exactly,
But you can't do that.
The AI has a very short memory.
It does have a short memory. So the latest stuff that we're playing with now, and this is the latest everywhere, everybody's playing with it, the world has come to a conclusion that AI bots must have really good memory to feedback in conversations. Lots of researchers are cracking the problem. We're there with them. I'm talking to all these hot startups in the Valley. We're using their tools to create memory, contextual memory, adding that back into our bots. And you know, this all links in. If you look at the Rozee data, we have 10 million professionals.
Right.
We know their salaries, we know their education, we know if they're married or not married, we know their skills, we know how marketable they are, how likely they are to get another job. And then during conversation, you establish more facts. So we can provide them many more services than just help them build a CV on WhatsApp. In English or Urdu, through like a voice note even, or to hand them job alerts. Now we can say, hey, do you want to save money? You should buy gold through PMEX. You can do it like this. We can do it for you. You should put your money in a mutual fund account, like a halal mutual fund, and here's how you do it.
Like really growing the experience to another level, actually.
We can give them loans. I can ask them 5 or 6 questions. These are the best people to lend to. They're salaried professionals. They're marketable. They have jobs. They have disposable incomes. So this whole platform now is taking on a super exciting life. I send them back to the jobs that I post, that my employers post. And based on the jobs they apply for, I get additional information. It's a big flywheel going on.
Crazy.
So I'm super excited about agentic AI and bots.
I feel it.
But it's still, you know, the early days where you're innovating, you're scratching the surface. But this time, I have the bullets on the platform. So exciting time to do a lot of things. And then on the SME retail front, the sort of experiments we've been successful with on Dukan has just been incredibly encouraging.
Okay, so what's your ambition with all of this happening? I feel like you are so excited on what's happening already in the Pakistani ecosystem. You are also operating globally through now Recruit AI. And so what will be the next ambition of Monis as an entrepreneur?
Yeah. Look, I've been doing all of this on fumes. If you look at how much money now that we have taken to get to where we are after this long journey, it's been a constant struggle of building things, selling it, making money, doing it without getting venture capital. Because that has a whole a range of nuances along with it as well.
Right.
And so I think the stage we're at where we really want to build something exciting and profitable without having to raise VC funding, which could derail plans, investors get impatient, politics start, agendas change, the various things. So,
be as autonomous as possible.
Yes, because you need that creativity in like a market like ours to be able to experiment and try different things, because nobody's solved this problem before, right? You're going to make mistakes. You're going to,
of course,
backtrack and find new things. So look, why am I excited? We have about 60 million working people in Pakistan. 20 million are white collar, 40 million are blue collar workers. I could only serve 20 million of them, and I serve 20 million to an extent. Now I can serve those 20 million much better because of my matching algorithm, agentic bots. But now I can also serve that other 40 million. Your chowkidar, the carpenter, the key mechanic, whoever you have now through my agentic AI, I can service the entire piece. Which means I can give jobs. We've helped over 1 million people find jobs, but they're white collar workers. That means I should be able to help, at least 3 million blue collar workers find jobs.
Crazy.
Or 2 million blue collar worker find jobs. And imagine the sort of data I'll get on these undocumented blue collar workers by helping them agentically build their CV and add nuances to their CVs and details and match them with jobs completely on a contextual AI basis through voice notes, a language they can understand, offer them incremental financial services because I know about them.
Crazy.
So basically, you're digitizing individual consumers at a massive rate. You're helping them, you're uplifting their income prospects, you're helping them get capital to grow, you're helping them with their savings, and we can have a front row seat in sort of enabling this. What could be more exciting than that? Now you come to the SME side. 40% of our economy are these small undocumented SMEs. And we try to feed them our very advanced apps and say, do this, do that, and quite unnaturally. So Dukan is making it incredibly simple for any business to come online, accept payments through a unified QR code that we instantly generate when you enter the app. All you do is you enter your ID card and where you already have your account.
Right.
And you take a selfie, you're on board, you get a QR code. Now money starts coming in from your customers. You can show the QR code. We've built in Soundballs technology into our phone, so you don't need a device. The moment that QR code scanned, you get an audio. We're connecting distributors and FMCGs directly into our fabric. So if you're in the catchment area of a distributor, you connect directly to a distributor, you can order. The distributor will drop off supplies. I'm credit scoring that. I'm credit scoring incoming, outgoing. I'm allowing the merchants to sell airtime, bill payments, so they make more money.
It's a new word, actually.
It is.
It's a new word. Thank you, Monis, for such insight. You drove us with you in this roller coaster journey that you have been through the last 20 years plus here in Pakistan ecosystem and in the global regional tech ecosystem. I actually really do love it, and I think it's going to be very relevant for our audience, entrepreneurs, first-time entrepreneurs, even serial entrepreneurs. I think it's going to be fun. I will finish with a kind of a rapid fire questions.
Sure.
One word to describe the startup scene in Pakistan.
Pregnant with opportunity. That's 3 words. Sorry.
Pregnant.
That'll make headlines. The Pakistani startup scene is pregnant.
FinTech in 2025, hype or hope?
Hope.
Favorite productivity hack?
AI tools.
Oh, that is going to be my second question. AI tool you can't live without?
Now.
That's
tough. Claude and ChatGPT.
Both of them.
Claude for programming, ChatGPT for everything else.
Word of advice for wannabe entrepreneurs.
Have resilience, have faith, understand that Pakistan is a tough market to crack. There haven't been any unicorns yet from the local online economy because it was too small. Valuations that you get as a startup are much higher than the actual sort of income you're going to be able to make from here. So don't get trapped into raising money at a high valuation and then finding out that you'll never be able to generate that income from Pakistan, which is what happened to almost all of the startups that raise money. Try not to raise VC funding. Try to build something as organically with a small seed round, get a customer that pays for it, show your growth, and then raise money on your own terms, and know that it's going to take a lot longer than you think. So you have to have the resilience and staying power.
Thank you very much. That was a beautiful wrap. And lovely to have you. Lovely to have you. And
thank you so much,
Very
Sarah.
Good luck in everything that you're doing. I'm so excited to see what's the future is bringing for Rozee, for Dukan, for Recruit AI. It's so exciting time that we are ahead now.
Well, thank you so much. And it's great to have you in Pakistan. You're a gift.
Having some fun. We're trying to have some fun here.